my name is Stephanie Cox, and I'm going to be talking about the resistance analyses of the PURPOSE studies. So the PURPOSE 1 and PURPOSE 2 were studies that evaluated lenacapavir for PrEP. They also had active control arms of TDF, and then PURPOSE 1 additionally evaluated TAF for PrEP. At screening, or for all participants in both studies, is it not this one? Yeah, sorry. Oh, there. For both participants, all participants in both studies had to come for a screening visit within 30 days of randomization, where they had testing done that included a rapid point-of-care fourth-generation HIV test, a central laboratory fourth-generation HIV test, and a quantitative nucleic acid amplification test. All tests had to be negative, and then participants could return at day 1 and have all testing repeated, though the only test that was available in real time was the rapid point of care test. So as long as this was negative, then participants could be dosed with study drug. So in PURPOSE 1, there were 5,345 participants that were dosed with study drug. And once that central laboratory testing returned, we realized that 7 participants were baseline infections. So they had acquired HIV prior to day 1. So we did not include those in the efficacy analysis population because our statistical analysis plan stated that all participants had to be negative on day 1. So those participants, we did follow up on them and do resistance testing, but they were not included in the efficacy analysis. So then the 5,338 participants that were included went for the primary endpoint, and we had 55 incident infections at the primary endpoint. So for the baseline infections, we had 4 that were in the Len arm, 1 in the TAF arm, and 2 in the TDF arm. And then for the 55 incident, we had 0 in the Len arm, 39 in the TAF arm, and 16 in the TDF arm. For PURPOSE 2, there were 3,271 participants that were dosed with study drug, and once again, we found that there were 6 baseline infections when the central laboratory testing returned, and then we had 11 incident infections at the primary endpoint. And so for the 6th baseline, we had 4 in the Len arm and 2 in the TDF arm, and for the incident infections, we had 2 in the Len arm and 9 in the TDF arm. So on the left is the participants who acquired resistance mutations during the PURPOSE 1 study, and then on the right we have the longitudinal adherence patterns of participants with resistance on the oral PrEP arms. So we can look at participant A and C, and we see that they have M184I or M184VI, and they also had suboptimal adherence patterns by dried blood spot. And dried blood spot is measuring the tenofovir levels in their blood. And the darker the color, the more adherent the participants are. And so, but they have suboptimal levels, and this is most likely why they failed their PrEP and why resistance emerged. Then we have the participant B on the TAF arm, and they had K65R and M184I found at failure and high levels by dried blood spot. We think this is a case of transmitted drug resistance where the virus already had the mutations prior to the participant acquiring it, and so once they acquired it, this is what caused their failure. For PURPOSE 2, we have 1 participant in the TDF arm who had M184V, and again, the suboptimal adherence patterns by dried blood spot. So we think this is the reason for their failure. And then we had the 2 participants in the Len arm who both had N74D found at failure, and this has been previously disclosed. And then we have the resistance analysis in participants with unrecognized HIV at baseline. So for all participants in both studies, there was no resistance mutations found at day 1. Then we followed the participants through either when they suppressed or when the last visit that they had. So for PURPOSE 1, in 2 out of the 4 participants on the Len arm, and PURPOSE 2, in 2 out of the 4 participants in the Len arm, we found N74D had emerged. We also saw in 1 participant in PURPOSE 1 that T107A had emerged, though this, as shown before in previous presentations, has no phenotypic Len resistance seen with it, so we do not consider this a Len resistance-associated mutation. And then we had 1 participant in the TAF arm with M184V and 1 in PURPOSE 1, and 1 participant in the TDF arm in PURPOSE 2 with M184V. And so that was seen that came out after failure or after the baseline. And this just highlights that really knowing what your HIV status of participants prior to starting PrEP is very, very important. And also getting participants on a full regimen as soon as possible is also extremely important. For the 4 participants that did have N74D, they were able to be treated with the standard of care, and 3 out of the 4 suppressed, with the 4 having documented non-adherence. So I'd like to thank the study participants and their families and my co-authors and the study team. Thank you very much.